Hi, this is János, it's Real World Audio, and it's time to have a look at another question today, another comment that I have received through my wonderful computer. So let's have a look at it. Here we are. And Peyush Aras, well, I hope I'm not butchering your name. So he commented and he said, I just discovered your channel and I have seen many videos today and I love it. And the way you present everything, thank you. I also have a Mirage 760 pair and procured it a year back. I feel it is a beautiful speaker with very tight, punchy sound, but somehow I feel it's missing that high frequency detail at times. I was researching on same and came across your channel. I also come across another forum where through testing of various old, new and film normal high-end capacitors, they are saying there is not an actual difference by changing the caps. Please check the 3-part testing below. Would love to hear your thoughts on the same, as you have done a lot of testing yourself. Please enlighten on this topic. I saw also you were planning to again tweak the Mirage 760 crossover. Please share what changes you have done and how it has changed things now. So thank you, Peyush, for your wonderful comment, and I have to admit though that I have not yet done the second round of tweak on the crossovers, but actually I was going to use DC-Link capacitors for that purpose. And for that we can go, let me see, here we go, maybe not, that's you can see Digikey, and there I just, if you go to Digikey's website, basically you type in Digikey at Google, it comes up, and maybe let's just go through the whole process together so you know what we are talking about. You know what, let me just type in Google. So here we are, this is where you start from. You type in Digikey, or you can type in any other source that you want to buy your capacitors from, and when you go at it, all others will work similar ways. I have a video on searching sites, but right now we are doing it, so the search engines you have will be similar everywhere. There will be differences, but if you have been using them, then you are familiar with it. If not, then here's Digikey, and using, for example, Mauser, it's almost exactly the same, and you type in DC-Link capacitor, that's it, and do a search on it, and there you go. And now we will choose film capacitors. And for film capacitors, I will choose a couple brands that I want results with, at Epcos, TDK, Kemet, and maybe Panasonic as well. So if I hold down the control and click on more, it will select those choices. So I'm just choosing these 3 brands. And let's go for capacitance, and let's choose 12.5 microfarads, because that's one of the capacitor values that I would be using, and check for in-stock option, and now click on apply all, and now it will reduce the choice. That in-stock thing, it's really important you click that, because you want to see only those results that they have at the moment. And now it's here it lists there are 3 different series of capacitors. The C4 series, it looks like this is all Kemet. Kemet has this C4 series and different voltage ratings, and it's enough if you choose the lowest, but if you go for higher voltage rating, they will be higher quality capacitors, which might give you a little bit better sound if you go for higher, and also a tiny bit more expensive, and will be much bigger in size. So you can go for the smallest one, and you can just click on apply all. Okay, and it seems that they have one in stock of this type of capacitor, which is a 12.5 microfarad 450 volt DC rated DCLink capacitor, and you see it's $7 each, so it's not going to break any banks really. So now we have found the capacitor, and we can look for the other value, and you can find it this way. So this is one choice that I would be using, but actually I think I already, if you want to go back, you can clear a choice and you can choose other values, or you can just scroll down the list, and you see it has 3 different versions. And I think I already bought this guy, the 700 volt C4K, so I already have this for the Mirage tweak, but I have not put it in yet. So this is what I will be using, and as you see, it has 4 legs. So this, let me just show it in a bigger picture. So most of these DCLink capacitors have 4 legs. So the ones which are smaller, physically smaller in size, they have just 1 leg on each side, like the previous green one we saw that had only one legs. And here we have two legs, and this side, this is one polarity, the other side is another polarity. And when you look at this side that I'm showing with the hand there, around here in this area, there will be a dot on one side, like here, or on the other side, which we don't see now. And where you have the dot on that side, that's the outer foil. So when you connect up, if you see a dot marking, it means that's the outer foil. If you don't see a dot in this area on either side, it means they did not mark which is the outer foil. But for these DCLink capacitors, it doesn't make a big difference. I mean, I would say not as big difference as it makes with, let's say, like the Russian oil caps. For them, it's a tremendously big difference, which is the outer foil. And how can you establish that? I will make a video on that. You can use an oscilloscope to tell which is the outer foil, because one side will pick up noise a lot and the other don't. And for some capacitors, it's really vital, like the Russian oil caps, and they're because they pick up a lot of noise through the body of the capacitor. But these DCLink caps, they truly are, they have really good noise rejection. And also most modern capacitors, so if you are getting like Mundorf Evo or something like that, there the difference between the outer foil, inner foil is not as big as with the older generation capacitors that were made before 2010 or so. So basically you wire these two together and you wire those two together. So maybe, let's say, this will be your negative polarity and this will be your positive polarity. That's how we wire. And how you want to mount these capacitors is that I just you can use hot glue, put a dab of hot glue on the top and mount it to your chassis through the hot glue, or you can use another glue that holds it there. Like, for example, there's the 3M double-sided tape which they use for industrial purpose to hold windows on the buildings and car windows in the car and things like that. Those can be purchased and used, but hot glue will be cheaper, and that one will hold it in place really well, plus also give you a vibration isolation, which is really good for the sound. So this is something that I was thinking about upgrading. And now comes the more delicate part of this comment, is the reference to the Audio Science Review forum, and that's something that's a really big subject and topic that I really don't want to go into, because I am not that familiar with Audio Science Review forum. The way I got exposed to it was through other people referring to it, and what kind of discussions are going on there. And there's Amir, who does audio science review channel and the forums, and he has a really nice setup, and he does lots of measurements, and it, I think it's probably enlightening to watch his videos. I sadly I have to confess that I only watched one of his videos. That was in response to that GR research loudspeaker that he made on Danny's loudspeaker, and analyzing it, and establishing whether it's a good loudspeaker or not, and actually the measurements he has done were good and really proper, that he showed in the video, up to the point where I watched it. I think I watched about 2/3 of that video, and he has done a nice job doing the measurements, but the interpretation of the measurements was what I think was really off, and that's why I stopped watching the video, and I really don't want to comment on what he's saying, because I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing, because he obviously knows what he's doing, and there's a lot of people who really like what he's doing. What my impression was of his channel and how he was analyzing the measurements was someone who is coming from a physics background, that you have a physics education, you know a lot about measurements, but I have a very big suspicion that he doesn't know about audio. He doesn't know, he's not familiar yet with how a good system sounds, what are the different tiers in audio, and he is trying to explore it, trying to approach audio from the point of measuring, and based on the measurements he wants to find out what is a good amplifier, what is a good DAC, what is a good cable. My approach is diametrically opposite. What I'm doing is that I have experienced what are the different levels of audio, and I'm using measurements to help me to refine things, find out if there's a problem with an equipment, and use it to as a helping hand. So it's kind of I think even on my channel, if you look up my channel, then let me see, if you go to my channel's homepage, you will find lots of different playlists, and I have a playlist called measurements. So this is where I have shared a lot about my thoughts on measurements, and you can see there's 55 videos currently that I made on measurements. So you can just scroll down, and you can find my thoughts on it. And so the way I approach measurements is that I'm not using them as a crutch to establish what is good sound. For that I use my education that is from listening to musicians. I've been growing up listening to classical music, not just recorded but live, mostly live, and for me live music has been my calibration tool, and when I listen to an audio equipment, then that's what I'm calibrating. That's what when it sounds, I'm not even saying when it sounds like live, because when it has the same effect on me as live music does, then for me that's a quality that is to strive for. So on my channel, what the advice I'm sharing is to build systems that will give you an experience that you have when you listen to live music. And these 50 plus videos are my thoughts on it, how measurements can help you with that. And I think that's it for now, and I really don't want to go like to the link that was shared with us, that Peyush shared, because it's like super long, and I think that's what people have been saying, that on the audio science review forums you have these incredibly long threads, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but you see, I'm wearing glasses, and like reading this paragraph now, it's just pretty much that's what my eyes can handle for tonight. And going through like how many pages, there's like 14 pages in the forum, and scrolling down, and I'm still not finished with the first page, and there's 14 more. So it's I'm sorry, but I'm not ready for this now. And especially, but what I'm ready is to share where are we? Here we are. Is that what I'm thinking about measurements, and especially now, Peyush, you have mentioned that what Amir was saying is that these different capacitors don't make a difference in the sound, because the measurements between them are not really noticeable, and I do agree that sometimes you just measure with measurements, you cannot find out what is good sound, and not all changes can be easily caught by measurements, because what measurement establishes for you is that whether your computer thinks that the change was big or not. And yes, Amir absolutely has a bullseye, a 100% on that, is that when you change capacitors in the audio frequency range, your computer thinks not much or barely anything. That's just above the noise floor. That's all that's happening. But our eyes are not silicon, our ears and our brains are not silicon-based computers. Analog processing that goes in our brains works completely different from digital processing that computers use, and the experience that your brain translates from the sound waves hitting you are translated in a very different manner than your oscilloscope or your computer reads out the data. And so right now what I can share with the Mirage is that when you change crossover capacitors, it will drastically impact upon how extended the high frequencies will be. So for example, for you, as you are missing the high frequencies, what I can bring you or recommend to you is maybe like check out Solan capacitors for the crossover, for the tweeter, for the soft dome tweeter, and Solans are pretty much the lowest grade of film capacitors, but number one, they are super cheap, and what they do to the sound is that they artificially boost the high frequencies. So what a capacitor does in the crossover, it's not just, it cuts down the signal, so it doesn't just set the crossover slope and the frequency, you set the slope by the order of the crossover, but the actual capacitor choice will also greatly affect that slope. And if you use that Solan, then actually how your brain will hear that crossover, you will hear it as if the slope is much tighter, and you will hear much less bass, much less upper bass when you use Solan capacitor for your tweeter. And however, and that's because the Solans, they shift the energy of the incoming audio frequencies, so that the energy will be shifted toward the higher frequency band. Because capacitors, they not only just cut out, like in the case when you are using it as a high pass filter, it doesn't just cut off the lower frequencies so they cannot pass through, but it also it changes the distribution of the energy that will reach your tweeter. and in the case of a Solent capacitor, it will disproportionately overemphasize the 10 to 15 kilohertz range, and you will hear it that as if the high frequency extension of your driver has and your speakers has tremendously increased. However, it's not a high quality capacitor, and your hearing and brain will adjust to it. In a couple of weeks you will start noticing that you're not just having a lot more high frequencies, but you have a lot of high frequency issues as well. But how much you have depends on your amplifier, on your system, your interconnect cable, your speaker cable, how well they can negotiate. But all in all, you will be experiencing a lot more high frequency to boot with compared to what you have now. And then if you want to go beyond that, you can try something like a Mundorf Evo Oil, which actually sounds just like these DC-Link capacitors once you break both of them in. When you put them before breaking in, when they are brand new, they sound drastically different compared to each other. The DC-Link capacitors have a very strong plastic sound. It will sound nasty, really, really ugly, plastic, bad sound. And as it breaks in, give it a couple hundred hours, that plastickiness will disappear, and it will open up very nicely. And it won't have that uneven distribution of the Solent. It will have a nice even distribution. You have more of the lower energy, but you will have even higher energies that the Solent can reproduce, and that 10 to 15 kilohertz band won't be overemphasized. And when the Mundorf Evo Oil breaks in, it will reproduce a very similar sound, at least in a position when you use it in a crossover for a high pass for a tweeter. That's how they sound. They sound very, very close to each other. And for the Mundorf, when it's brand new, it will sound like really muddy and anemic and not much high energy, but much more balanced compared to any generic capacitor you have in the crossover. And as it breaks in, you will feel the energy build up, it's opening up, everything like really will transform really tremendously. And you can look both of them up, and the one that you can find for cheaper, get that one for the Mirage. And if you would go with Audio Science reviews, they would just plop it in, measure them, they measure the same. But if you ever try it out and listen, just listen, then one thing you will notice is that they drastically sound different compared to when you put in brand new and after they broke in. So when you measure, big question, do you measure a brand new cap or a broken in cap? Is there any mention on those 14 pages about how it was broken in? What was the difference between the brand new and the break-in part? And I think that that's something a really good reference for anyone who ever tries it out. I mean, try the capacitor upgrade out and hear it for yourself. Is there any difference? And if you hear any difference, then you don't need any kind of measurement confirmation bias to prove it to you that there was a difference, because you experience it. It's kind of like you go out, is the sun up? You see it, it's up, it's up. Do I need a telescope or an observatory to prove it? No, just open my eyes, that's it. The sun is up, or maybe it's dark like now. Same thing with capacitors. Try it out. And that's I think that's something that's missing a lot on the measurements forums, is that people don't want to try things out. They just want to measure something and talk about the measurements. And it's like talking about swimming and reading textbooks on swimming, but no one jumps in a pool to actually swim and experience it for themselves. And if you don't do that, then I don't see the point in doing measurements much. And yes, measurements are beneficial, but what I have experienced in my audio journey, and all of my friends who do measurements, and all of the professionals who do measurements is that they are really secondary to the quest of finding good sound. And even if you look at the greatest audio minds who have been researching measurements, like for example I can mention Nelson Pass, they can tell you that it's not the measurement that makes good sound. You can tell a lot from measurements, but if you just stick to measurements alone and you are not using your ears to calibrate, then you are building products for your computers, and that's commendable if you use them as a research tool when you are researching something. But if you build something for your own enjoyment, that's very different from building something to a computer's enjoyment. And I think that's it for now. And for now, it's time to hit this button here on my computer to stop this episode. So my advice is try it out and build experience basis for yourself. And if you found that the change has made a difference in your system, now you have experience that you can build on. If you found that it didn't make a change in your system, that's also an experience basis that you can build on. And as I said before, there's like so many different kinds of systems that in certain systems you can change capacitors, you won't hear any difference, and in others you change the cap and it's night and day difference. And it's for you to find out that in your system what is the situation. And if you want more, it takes many more videos to explore this subject. I have over 1,000 videos on my channel, and I think about at least 100 of them are about how to explore stuff, how reactive your system it is to specific changes, and how you can build a system for yourself that is reactive to changes, that where you have the power to impact on which direction you want to take it. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and wish you wonderful success. Have an amazing day, and there's my stop button. That's why I'm looking at my computer. Bye bye.